Last week, I flew into Aspen to link up with some incredible people. Right? Hang out, delve into life, business, and everything in between. As someone who's been chasing sun his entire adult life, I wasn't really prepared for snow, let alone Aspen. But who cares? I was pumped, booked the flight from Phoenix, and off I went. And my entire experience there was incredible. The people, the place, the conversations, just unreal. And I'll share more on that soon, as I'm sure you predicted. But we need to start with the juicy stuff, right? Have to, because this is wild. Leaving that place felt like a Stephen King novel. In fact, as I'm speaking this, 2 days later, I'm pretty sure there are guys that may still be stuck at the airport trying to catch a flight out. Apparently you can go to Aspen, but you can never leave. So this will be fun. Quick background. Aspen Airport, for those who don't know, I sure didn't. Very high elevation, little sort of runway up, in the mountains. And if there's wind, the planes literally can't land. So the pilots just circle the airport again and again for like an hour, hoping for a window where the wind stops and they can land the plane. And, when they've been circling long enough and aren't able to land it, start running low on gas, they let you know that Aspen is no longer the plan, and they'll instead be dropping you at Grand Junction Airport, which is like 2.25 hour drive west into the desert. So arriving, it wasn't that big of a deal. First world problems, right? Was rerouted, took a bus back to Aspen, met up with the guys, was about 5 or 6 hours late. Life goes on, right? But the way back, let me tell you about the way back. My flight was scheduled to depart around like 10:30 a.m. So I'm sitting in the airport, looking at the screen. It's like cancellation after cancellation after cancellation. Somehow my flight's still good. Miracle. Right? Awesome. Then 5 minutes before we're supposed to board, you know how it goes, right? They let us know that what was going to be our plane was circling the airport and couldn't land. So they were rerouted, which meant we now have no plane, which meant flight canceled, which meant incoming chaos. Having lived this, right, I have a feeling I'll find it more interesting than you, so I'll try and hurry through these cliff notes. But just imagine like circus music playing everywhere I walked that day. That's what it felt like, just absolute lunacy. Trying to figure out how to get home, no more flights available, which meant I'd be staying until tomorrow. But they couldn't guarantee the same thing wouldn't happen again tomorrow. Plus, the arrival times were super late. It would be like 24, 30 hours waiting around the airport. They could, however, send me back out into that little airport in the desert for a flight early the next morning. Fine, whatever. Let's just get this show on the road, right? Now I need to get there, though. And the cheapest thing I found was like $1,100, which is just a hell no. Uber couldn't find a driver. So, after an hour and change, I start walking around. I bug enough people with name badges that one of them writes a number down on a piece of paper, hands it to me. I call it, blindly pay this person $150 over the phone, hoped that the shuttle would arrive, and after a few hours it did. A very nice man arrived in a very nice suit with a white beard, whistling and slinging bags into the back of the shuttle like he was an actual cartoon character. Off we go. And as we're leaving, there's this sort of symbolic moment, at least in my mind, as we made our way down, I believe it was Route 17 through the Red Rocks. I felt like I was leaving everything I needed to do behind me. It was like this stress, this panic, this really dark moment. I'm racking my brain thinking about, this is going to be a day and a half I'm missing. I have so much to do. I worked so hard on my new episode. Can I even release it? I had meetings scheduled, a group workout planned, editing that absolutely needs to get done. And my compass is quite literally aiming in the opposite direction towards nowhere, nothing town, right? And Not to mention, I had some amazing momentum from the weekend. I'm ready to rock and roll. But this entire day's pushed me further and further from where I needed to be. You know when you're so lost in the weeds of your own mind that the little things become big things? And big probably isn't sufficient. Monumental, overwhelming. That's where I was, on a metaphorical bus to failure. Then, as the driver pulled off suddenly to clean his windshield at a gas station, the humor of it all kind of hit me. It's like, these are the moments where you just need to elevate above the minutia. Where I realized it's kind of an adventure, and I could make this an incredible experience if I wanted to. I mean, it's only been an inconvenience because I was programmed to make it one. Started going further down that line of reasoning and came to the conclusion that technically that whole list of commitments I made and things I had to do could wait. Like, not some of the things, but everything, all of the things. This could become the lesson. This setback could be the story. This could be the reason I reach someone who has eyes on the ground as mine were and not towards the sky. Focused on what could go wrong, blind to all that could go right. See, this isn't so much about triumph over hardship, at least not in my mind. After all, I was on a shuttle from Aspen. It's not like I was digging ditches in the rain. But funny enough, I think the lesson as it compounds is just as important. It's about pulling our heads up long enough to find value in what is seemingly an inconvenience. It's about understanding that you can't always control the circumstance, but as Viktor Frankl articulated, the attitude you choose to take on is yours, and that can be your strength, your superpower. That cannot be taken from you. So find the light. And look, you do this once, nothing really changes. You simply smiled and opted not to be a 38-year-old throwing a well-deserved tantrum in an airport, right? But when you make it a habit, when you turn that lever time and time again, when you fixate your eyes on the good, you become one of the few who seek solutions amidst a world otherwise desperate to point out problems. People love to do that. Things start working for you, not against you. The characters in your story whistle and squeegee their way to assist with solutions. The places you end up might not be what was, originally mapped out, but they contain all the necessary pieces nonetheless. The quote-unquote nothingness you drive to the heart of ends up being perfect. A foundation in need of a builder, a blank canvas in need of an artist. It had to be that way. You just won't notice until at some point that landscape is in your rear view. And look, I'm gonna do my best to never have to fly into the Aspen airport again. And my friends, I say that with immense conviction. But in life, there will be plenty of metaphorical planes that do not land. Plenty of rerouting that occurs. Plenty of unexpected, overpriced rides to places you didn't think you needed to go. And hidden underneath all of it, there will also be answers. Keys to doors you didn't know were locked. A magic of sorts designed to transport the real into the ideal, but here is the catch, and it's a very important one. You have to remind yourself to open your eyes and look, to peel back the first layer of inconvenience in pursuit of the value it stands upon. Otherwise, life's greatest opportunities take on the shape of road-weary passengers, late for obligations that didn't really matter to begin with. What's up, guys? Eddie here. And before we jump into the next chapter, just a quick note. So, as many of you know, every single video that I've ever put on this channel has been created with the intent of building momentum in your life. If you want something physical to anchor that momentum, we've created the brand AGNS, or Always Grateful, Never Satisfied, for that exact reason. Athletic apparel that embodies the very ideas and concepts I talk about every day. Because you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, we've created a code for this exclusive community, YWW20. You can use that on the website, agns.lifestyle, or right under this video on YouTube. All this stuff is there in the shop. Again, code YWW20 gets you 20% off the entire store. It's a great way to support the channel and also elevate your journey. Let it be a reminder to keep showing up. Appreciate your time. Always grateful, never satisfied. On to the next. So I want to revisit one of my favorite quotes. Mark Twain, if you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. This idea resurfaced in my mind last Saturday night. Just because of what was going on during the day, I didn't really have a ton of time to get to the gym, so I ended up going pretty late. And there was not a soul around in the gym. Completely empty, completely quiet, going from, machine to machine without any people or having to wait or anything like that. And I just got this moment of clarity, this sort of ever-relevant reminder that there is a ton of value to be extracted from the abnormal decisions that we make. Now, I'm not saying there's anything heroic about going to the gym on a Saturday night. Working out's working out. You get it in, that's wonderful, right? I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with working out on quote-unquote normal hours or during normal hours. What I'm saying is being exceptional necessarily means you are doing that which is not ordinary. And that situation highlighted, or I will say reminded me, that there's an entire world slightly beyond the scope of normality. And that world accumulates to provide treasures beyond comprehension. I love that message. It's changed my life over the years, and every time I come face to face with it, I feel reinvigorated. It's like an opportunity to re-audit where I'm focused and how I'm spending my time. I'll never forget that interview with Kobe Bryant where he's talking about his morning routine, right? And he says, he practices no matter what, 2 hours every morning. He's there before everybody else, whether that's shooting or drills or working out. I'm not sure exactly what he does, but he's there and no one else is. And he says, a week, that's not much. A month, that's not much. But months turn into a year, which turns into multiple years, which turns into a decade. And that much time, that much extra effort compounds into an advantage that just no one else can reach, right? At some point, Kobe is too far along because of his additional concentrated effort. He can't be touched. And in my life, I've found my greatest return on investment by highlighting the things that matter most and consistently delving into them in a way that most wouldn't, right? No miracles. Just an acknowledgement that right beyond where most people stop, there's value. Not even far beyond, just right there. In my world, it was showing up every week to create a YouTube video, even when the response for years had been underwhelming. Would most people do that? I don't know. I was practicing writing speeches and speaking them out loud in my studio to an audience of 0. Would most people do that? It was acclimating myself to risk and my ego to bruises along the way. Would most people do that? And see, the great news is there's nothing special about any of that, right? Those are simply the metaphorical gyms I chose to walk into. The daily shoot-arounds that ended up ultimately changing my life. And so now, because I have to ask, what are yours? What can become your empty gym? What can be the thing that's a little out there, a little different? The opportunity left on the table, waiting for you to reach out and take it, control it, make it your own. Remember, just because the crowd goes one way doesn't make that particular decision wrong, but it does make that particular decision ordinary. And ordinary, my friend, is not why you're here. The moral is to the physical as 3 is to 1. A quote attributed to Napoleon Bonaparte regarding his troops' morale in battle. Victory starts and ends with mindset. So, the myth or story goes, Napoleon had a coin. And he was known, prior to embarking upon particular battles, to flip this coin. He would say, if it lands on heads, my friends, it's not our day. We weren't meant to fight. We'll stay here and fight some other day. However, if it lands on tails, the gods are on our side. We're meant to charge into battle and collect our victory, for it is destined. And every time this coin landed on tails, the army would proceed into battle. They would march into the onslaught of oncoming bullets, of weapons and fire raining down on them. And they would collect their victory. And as time passed, Napoleon died, this coin was eventually found. And upon examination, something interesting was uncovered. The coin was tails on both sides. This coin had nothing to do with the gods. It was about preparing his men for victory in their minds before ever stepping onto a battlefield. It was about believing in an outcome before pursuing its realization. This is life. To believe something's possible is perhaps the greatest weapon one can have in their arsenal. When you believe something is possible, the question goes from, can I, to how will I? The gap is bridged. The terrain is crossed, because time is not exhausted on the likelihood of the outcome, but on its materialization. I heard someone say years ago that some of the most incredible things in history were accomplished by people too ignorant of the odds to be held back by them. Dreams are self-fulfilling prophecies. They require one be crazy enough to willingly navigate the enemy's fire, to step into hostile territory, put a stake in the ground, and live as though you were meant to be there. To operate knowing the unknown is where answers live and excuses die. It's believing that the world doesn't dictate your fate. It just adds variables to the story. It puts building blocks at your feet, places a paintbrush in your hand. You are the only one who chooses whether to stop or go, to quit or continue. Life can place obstacles before you, but only you decide whether to bow down to them, navigate around them, or march directly through them. We win behind our eyes before we go into the world and collect our medals. The moral is to the physical as 3 is to 1. So close your eyes. Win your victories. Then go out into the world and collect them. The answer you're looking for is right there in the room, always. Now, that's certainly a bold statement. And as I've gotten older, I've kind of learned to avoid speaking in absolutes, right? Nothing in life is 100% guaranteed. So why am I so confident about that message? Everything you need is right there in the room, always. Well, because I believe in the premise, you're always one decision away from a totally different life. And when we're stuck or lost or looking for change, we need not some crazy, grandiose answer to be delivered from the heavens. We need to find the little action, the tiny movement that's going to set us forth on the journey. We need this snowflake that will become this snowball that will become the avalanche. It seems like so much of life comes down to simply outsmarting our biology. It's like the panic or the emotive defense mechanisms that come into play when we're sad or lost or feeling unsure or down. And it's an absolute superpower to know that when we're in those moments, what we need is an arm's length away. It's a perspective shift away. And I look over my shoulder and I see tons of examples here, right? With my keynote speaking, there was a period where it just wasn't quite clicking, where I knew I wasn't performing the way I could. And I was going back and forth on solutions, trying different things, experimenting, not quite getting there, feeling overwhelmed. It's like, why can't I recreate there what I'm doing here? And then one email to the person who's now my speaking coach, and I had my light bulb moment. It's like everything started to transform. Or my YouTube channel, right? It's up, down, everything in between. And like I've said before, there are times where a simple thumbnail change and that video explodes, causing the channel to explode. Right? That's not a big grandiose thing. I can always change a thumbnail. That answer is sitting in the palm of my hand with my phone. Or an example that falls on the more human side of things, right? There are times where, I've felt like I've neglected the relationships in my life in order to really focus on my creativity and my businesses. And sometimes that, mentally doesn't feel good. And I can pick up the phone, start a group chat, plan a dinner with some friends, and feel like my cup has been refilled. Right? It's like you don't have to have it all figured out, which is great news because you never will. You just need to start creating momentum. There's nothing more powerful than going to bed at night feeling like you are moving towards something meaningful. Again, doesn't mean you need to have it all figured out, but in a world where progress largely equates to happiness, it means you are actively manufacturing momentum. That's everything. I often think of my friend's son, Wyatt. He's become sort of a metaphor for that childlike instinct that seems to be the answer for so much, right? He's wandering around the living room, just reusing everything as it suits him. The world is not as it quote unquote is, it's as he sees it. Picks up a TV remote, becomes a microphone. Finds a blanket, becomes the roof for the fort he's building in the living room. Everything is a solution to what he needs. Everything is a color that can go on his canvas. And I think that's the place we need to be. That's the idea. The next brushstroke is in the room. Maybe it's a phone call, an email. Maybe it's a walk outside, a stroll to the gym. Maybe it's literally cleaning your room, your apartment or house. Maybe it's one social media post. Maybe it's a DM. Maybe it's 10 pages of a book. Maybe it's watching a how-to YouTube video. Maybe it's signing up for a class, meeting up with someone to talk business, life, or anything in between. See, we spend so much time trying to get to the moon that we overlook the staircase it'll take to get there. Oh, and surprise, step one is at your feet. Right? Don't think miracle, think momentum. It's very hard to slow down an object in motion. So stop beating yourself up for not having all the answers and simply keep moving. Don't feel down for not having all the solutions and be proud you're walking towards them. Remember, everything you need is in the room. Always. She had a picture framed on the table that said, "Make today amazing." placed there to reminder just how much of life is a choice, how much we get to decide. It symbolizes that on our worst days, life hands us lessons, and on our best days, the highs of existence. During our low points, currency, and during our high points, the chance to cash it all in. Yeah, make today amazing, because today's are few and far between. Today's are not an inconvenience, nor an obligation. Today's are what it's all about. Today is the big show. The answers we look for, the destinations we long for. Today is a place of dreams. That is, if you choose to leave room in your world for dreaming. Today is the beginning of wherever next is for you. A chance to see the new and normalize it. To stretch, to reach further out and pull impossible a little closer into your orbit. You can do that. And while one often can't control what they are given, they can control what becomes of what they are given. Like architects and designers engineering what will be and what the malleable world around them will become. When one raises their standards, life seems to accommodate. Because believing it means acting the part, means making the changes, means the external world makes room, means your identity is reinforced, and so the cycle goes. By making today amazing, you are making yourself more. Decisions are the beginning of all things. See, very rarely is the tool in and of itself the differentiator. It's the vision that pulls us through. And if you take something arbitrary, say a hammer, there's no way to, based upon its existence, determine what it will mean or what will become of it. A hammer can be an agent of chaos. It can smash and shatter and destroy. It can be the thing used to tear down. Or it can be what builds. It can connect. It can alter and redefine so that something, when all is said and done, is brought into an existence that never was. It was never the tool. It was how the eyes viewed the tool. It was the vision that designated the roles that made today amazing. And the reason we all need this reminder, as far as I can tell, is because the difficult things just so happen to be the meaningful things. Because we are fighting not against some little rule or idea we picked up along the way. We are fighting against our DNA, against thousands and thousands of years of evolution. Because the fear that kept our ancestors alert and alive now in a totally new world keeps us contained and our talents minimized. The approval of others that kept us safe and secure as we once traveled the landscape in small groups, hunting and gathering, well, now it keeps us needlessly looking over our shoulders and craving acceptance. The unknowns that kept us out of the dark cave with the predator living in its shadows now keeps us confined, looking out at life's potential through self-made windows. We need to be reminded to make today amazing, because those things are quite the adversaries. Because our default is to just let the ship sail. Our default is to simply survive. After all, that is the standard and the rule by which living things abide. Make it another day. But I believe you are more than a living thing. The godlike ability to not just exist in a world, but create new ones is a miracle. Both a blessing and a responsibility. To drive towards a more fulfilled you, a happier you, a healthier you, a more complete you. But one must first become aware that around them exist the pieces required to build something never before seen. The vehicle to those far-off places that were once only dreams, thoughts, illusions. I've always believed that if it means something to you, it's not stupid. It warrants exploration. For even if the thought doesn't end up being all it was cracked up to be, even if it's not the destination, but only a stop along the way, it still pushes you to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. It still moves you forward in this beautiful game of life. So decide. Decide to make today amazing. Choose to make it better. Let the obstacles lift you up and the momentum carry you towards something meaningful. When others stop and find reasons to doubt themselves, how about you find the small win buried, tucked away underneath it all? The little key that may do nothing more than get you through that next door. After all, sometimes that's what life's about. Picking up your head when it's most difficult and finding the next door to walk through. And the magic is knowing you can always do that. Because there always exists both the doorway and the key, but we must be willing to find it. That's the obvious thing about those doors. The right ones will open, but they require we find the strength to approach them. They require that we seek out amazing. And so with this in mind, what is the next chapter like for you? Are you currently enduring one of life's winters? Are you navigating those inevitable valleys of despair, in which the value is in finding that single ray of light amidst the storm? Looking within yourself for the courage to take one more step forward, and another, and another? Are you seeking out that spark that will reignite the fire in you? Because it's there, so long as you choose to make today amazing. Maybe you've climbed yourself out. Maybe you're looking for whatever's next, the new evolution. Seeking to follow your heart and continue the beautiful progression that is life. Let the external world support that vision. Choose to see the detail not as trivial, but as the answers. The tools that will lift you up and support what you are building, it's there. She had a picture framed on the table that said, "Make today amazing." Placed there to remind her how much of life is a choice. Because in a world of options, what a gift to choose the journey of a lifetime. What a ride that awaits, so long as you decide to step in.